What up, world? My name is Timothy De Jesus.
Hi everyone, Aldrich here.
Hello folks, it's Kevin Kwok here.
Hi, this is Jeremy C. I just wanted to say this about bottoms-up perspectives. It's about real lives, real journeys, and real perspectives.
The whole idea behind bottoms-up perspective was from the word kampai, or in Asian culture, oftentimes we drink until the bottom of our cup is empty and we turn it over. So it's very much like just cheers, right? And building relationship. And that's what we're all about, is building authentic, solid relationships on a global level and being able to see things from a global perspective.
And no, we're not Alcoholics Anonymous.
We are here to be the voice of everyone.
I love the idea that we're real people and we get to share our experiences with real people just like you.
So we look forward to having you join us.
Hello. Kevin, we can't hear you, Ken.
Guys, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So we're everywhere tonight. And it's episode 36. And it's going to be about student life. So we're going to have some fun here tonight because we have student life in the East and also student life in the West. So before we start, we have our special guest, Sam, with us. And he runs Uncle James Hostel. So why don't you share with us a little about what you do and in regards to student life and where you're located? Yep.
Hey, thanks guys. Thanks for having me. My name is Sam. I'm one of the partners for the organization called UJ Hostel, or better known as Uncle James Hostel. So what we do is we're basically a student accommodation provider. We are located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in a suburb called Bandar Sunway. That is where it's probably one of the oldest education hubs in the entire Malaysia. There's a few key universities here. One of them being Monash from Australia, and then a couple from local, Sunway and Taylor. Taylor was formerly also Australian-based. So here the universities are considered pretty much tier 1 university. So the entire area is pretty much converted into a student education hub, and a lot of the accommodation here are pretty much used up for student accommodation. So that's where we come in. We basically take properties from owners. We help them to manage it, giving the tenants a one-stop solution and giving these owners a one-stop solution also. So basically, we take rooms from owners and then rent it out to students. And then in between, we provide them services. Pretty much, I would say something like a home away from home for them. Pastoral care, pretty much mimicking a lot of these type of services that is pretty common in Australia, in UK, in a big part of Europe. Yeah. So providing for Southeast Asia, is probably one of the oldest and probably one of the more dominant education hubs around this area. So yeah, we're quite happy that how things have turned out since we started running this business. With the exception this year with the pandemic, but overall we are still doing good. Yeah. And thanks for having me again. Be able to share this. Yep.
Awesome. Hey, glad to have you, Sam. And sounds like that's exciting stuff going on. And student housing is definitely a little different, probably in the East versus in the U.S. But this is a topic that we're gonna jump into. So let's go ahead and start with the first question I have is, did you personally enjoy your student life? Or maybe you weren't a student. That's fine too. So I would love to get some feedback about the things that you remember, probably after high school, right? So, yep.
Yeah.
I guess
Sorry, go.
No, Sam, you can go first. break the monotony because usually I go first. So please go ahead.
Thanks. I have a bit of odd or interesting high school and university. So basically, I finished high school pretty much just Form 1 or what we call Year 7 in Malaysia. And then I was off to Australia. So I did pretty much 90% of high school in Australia. So during that stage, I'm away from home, but because of my age, so I need a guardian. So I was pretty much staying with my relatives. So I had kind of like relative stay for a good big part of that high school before I reached the age of 18 or reached the age of actually it was 16, not even 18, 16. I think that's where they allow us to have our own stay. So I moved out and stay with friends. So that was my first kind of foray into staying on my own, or if you like to call it pretty much like a student hostel or own stay. And then I went out and do university in my degree in Australia. So that's when I really get into understanding staying by yourself, renting a place. I was staying off campus. So it was interesting, but understanding kind of like how's the life being a foreign student in a foreign place and staying on your own and pretty much taking care of everything on your own. Still once in a while calling parents, say, hey, can you send me the money, please? Yeah, that's kind of pretty much sum up my little interesting part of that journey throughout my university life.
Good
Cool.
stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go next.
Go ahead,
so
Jeremy.
if we're talking about living in hostels, like what we see in the Western movies, right? Party till you drop and then wake up, whatever you call it, right?
That was your
sorority
life,
houses.
Jeremy, right?
I missed out. I missed out on all those. I really
Hangover.
missed out. No, I didn't go through all those, right? Because this is one part of my life which I think I missed out because what happened was that so we do primary school, we do secondary school, so there's like 10 years, and after that we have a path to choose, right? Branching path. You either go to what we call junior college and do your A levels for 2 years, and after that you go to the university. But for boys, you go to serve the military 2.5 years. At my time, that time, you serve 2.5 years
that's
before.
your hostel, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. So then you go to the university. But or the other path is you go into tertiary education immediately. So you go to a polytechnic, and you get a diploma. But I think you still need to. What do you do your military first before you do your polytechnic? I can't remember. I think you do polytechnic first. Yeah. So you do your polytechnic first. That's like 3 years. And then you join the army. So what happened to me was I went to do junior college A levels 2 years, and then I went to the army. So for 2.5 years, and I didn't do well in my A levels to get into university, at least not locally in Singapore. So I took the turn back and did my polytechnic for another 3 years. So what ended up was that I was in polytechnic, and I was like on average I think 4 or 5 years older than everybody else. Yeah, there's a small group of this kind of old students in polytechnics. I was one of them, and so I didn't have that chance to live in a hostel and party and party till the night and that kind of thing. So I missed out on that. But apart from that, my student life was pretty cool in the sense that the 2 years that I was doing junior college, I really played a lot because I realized everyone was smarter than me. Everyone, and I mean everyone. I did good enough to get into a really good junior college, but everyone there was smarter than me. So I was sort of discouraged, and I instead turned my attention and energy to be in students' council, whereas organizing activities, not so much studying, which was why my grades were affected. And after the military stint and all that, that was like my hostel, right, for 2.5 years. After that, you mature and you start thinking about things. And when I went back to do polytechnic, it was really more about studying. I had no extracurriculum activities. I just studied all the way because, come on, you're 20 plus, and all these kids are younger than you. Are you seriously still going to be playing? So no, I got serious, and then so it was really, play hard first, and then later work hard. So yeah, that was kind of like my student life. Now that I recall it, it was very fun still, both ways.
Well, I like to hear Tim's. I'm sure he's gonna be fascinating.
Mine is mine's a doozy. So, all right. So me personally, no, I never really enjoyed student life. I went to college straight out of high school, and I was already working in high school. So when I got out, I was already in the workforce, working full time and trying to go to school full time. And it was really a struggle. And I was commuting to school to boot. So it wasn't even like I was on campus. So, right from the gate, I was like pretty much on a grind. It felt like I was working 60, 70 hours a week between school and work. And I really wasn't enjoying it. So I was going to Rutgers at the time. I got accepted into Rutgers. And I was going to Rutgers at the time. My first semester, I did pretty well. I passed everything. But, by the second semester, it was really starting to wear on me because, I was freaking 18 years old still, you know what I mean? And it was a real grind. So my second semester, I ended up dropping out. I ended up flunking just about everything and dropping out just because it was too much. And to be honest, at the time, being 18 years old, I really didn't know what I wanted to do in life. So, to go kind of be thrust into that, and it wasn't really necessarily my plan. It was kind of like, you need to go to college, but it was never really my plan per se, or at least I wasn't ready for it at the time. So I flunked out my second semester. I ended up going to community college for another year, and same cycle. I did good one semester, and then by the second semester, I was starting to get cooked all over again. And I still really didn't know what I wanted to go. I was going for business, general business, but I really had kind of no direction. So for me, I didn't enjoy student life at all because I didn't have student life. I was working pretty much nonstop. I didn't make any real relationships in college. It was pretty much, I worked, I went to college, I went home. When I was on, I would study. I would go home, go to work, go to college, go home, like rinse, repeat. So it was my student life was not fun. And I know my experience is shared by a lot of people. So that's why I was interested in this topic, because I think for me there's a lot of value in my path and my direction and where I'm at now versus where I was coming out of high school.
That's awesome.
Tim, question.
Yeah.
So you said that some point when you were saying, right, you said that you had to go to college. So was that something was enforced on you by, I don't know, your parents, or you had something in you that told you had to, or or you just had to do it? I mean, where did that come from?
It was more so my parents were really pushing the agenda. I mean, I got pretty good grades in high school. I was able to get into Rutgers, so it's not a bad school. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they were like, you got to go, and I was like, okay. It wasn't really necessarily ever my plan. But at the end of the day, I understand the logic. They're like, look, you need to get a degree so you get a job, so you can do this, so you can do that, right? And back then, obviously, the world is completely different now than it was back then. So back then, it was almost, a lot of things that you could make six figures or, higher amounts of wages, that you needed a college degree for, unless you got into sales, which was never in the equation until, of course, I was in sales. But like back then, my parents were just like, you got to go to college. If you want to earn more, this is the path. And I was like, okay. But it wasn't necessarily ever my plan because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just picked a major and just kind of went. And it wasn't really productive. Thankfully, I didn't rack up too much in student loans in those few years I was in. So, it wasn't too hateful. But yeah, my parents kind of were like, you need to go. That's it. And I was like, oh, okay, I will. That happened to my lighting. Where'd that come from?
It must be a dark memory.
It got dark. Anyway, but yeah, so that was kind of like, it was more like my parents' plan. and never really was my plan. And so that's where it kind of, I think that's where I don't want to say the clash happened, because I didn't clash with them. I just kind of went with it. But that's mentally where the clash happened.
Right. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Aldrich?
I think I experienced we have the same experience in college where we are working, and then there are the studies. But what my take back of that is a lot more positive, because it showed me that it's actually that I am capable of doing a lot more for myself, not just studies. So in Asia, scholars are still very much in trend. So like, we have tons of scholars out there who can do very well and things like that. So I never saw myself as someone who wants to compete with them. I saw myself as, oh, okay, you guys go and get everything you want, but I want to have the best of everything, studies and outside of studies. So I did a lot of work too. I think every day for me was 19 to 20 hours. I even worked in the call center during the midnight shift, thinking that no crazy customer will call in to complain during the midnight shift, so I can sleep while earn some money, passive income, right? And do my homework. Oh man, I was wrong. So many people will call in and complain. Imagine picking up a customer complaint at 2 a.m. Okay, that's no joke. But anyway, so I share that from my college. But very early on, when I asked my aunt on what the future would be when I grow up and things like that, she gave me a very blunt comment. Okay, so my dad and my mom was thinking about the traditional professional routes, like oh son, your fingers looks very good when you play video games. Maybe you can be a dentist. I was like, dentist, video games. I was like, okay, so that's one thing. My mom was thinking along the lines of, I think, a law practitioner and things like that, but it just didn't hit me at all. Like I don't really care. Then when I asked my aunt told me, look, it's very simple. Do you think you're smart? I don't think so. I think you're dumb. So I think you should do business. Then I was like, yeah, that's right. so that's from young. And when I went to high school equivalent in the US, which is the A levels, I was like, okay, business, right? So which is the closest? Commerce, right? I should read economics. I should go commerce. And when I was in high school, it was a disaster. But because that was 17, 18 years old, the focus wasn't really on like cramming. The focus is really on the eyes, right? Like, there's the science stream, there's the commerce stream, and then there's the art stream. And then I would just hop into different lecture rooms. I was thinking, oh geez, the girls in science, they are like, okay, not for me.
train wreck.
Everyone is in a straight cut uniform. I was like, okay, it's all right, not for me. Then I move on. I went to commerce, and I was like, hey, the uniforms look like there's some fashion in it now. That the girls look a bit better. That must be for me. Okay, so I just went around. I had my little entertainment here and there. So there are good stuff. But of course, academically, I've been up and I've crashed before. So that experience I share with Jeremy. But the year that I have to go back and repeat because I failed my English, for some reason. Well, I'll never know, but anyway.
Copywriter.
Yeah. When I went back to repeat, I learned so much about people, because the same group of people that I interacted the year before, they all turned the cold shoulder on me, like 180. So that year, I didn't really suffer from a depression and things like that. I turned very cold inside, because I saw that aspect of human behavior. So since that year, I become very grounded. I'm like, I'll just like, if anyone says a lot of good things about me, I'll be like, thanks, but I don't take it too seriously, because I know if things flips, I'm going to see that part of human nature that I don't really appreciate, which I've gone through. So in summary, I think for student life, I think it's really like I've seen quite a lot. I've experienced quite a lot too, and I treasure it. It's the basis of, it's an accumulation of our experiences in life. That's me.
So that was Aldrich's Thanos story right there. That's what turned Aldrich into Thanos.
Yeah. I don't need weapons. Just let me do this.
Origin.
I'll finish all of you.
We finally,
the villain origin.
after 40 episodes, we've heard it. No.
36.
36. We're getting close. So for
Kevin.
me, so I grew up in a very Asian home as well, but in the U.S. And when we said U.S., I grew up in the Midwest, so that's like U.S. So for the longest time, I thought I was white. So until I went to college, it dawned on me that, hey, there's other Asians like me out there, So all my friends were Caucasians. I played basketball in high school. Pretty athletic and just hung out with a bunch of Americans, and pretty much from, I would say elementary all the way till high school. And then when I went to the university, it's the first time I noticed, oh, there's international students, not that I'm not aware there's other foreign people, but then it's like, that's when I really started connecting with my roots, I would say. I started hanging out with Asian exchange students and found, hey, there's common ground with those people and me. They like my food, and throughout high school, all the guys I hung out with are like, what are you eating, Kevin? Why do you always, when we ask where you want to go out, why do you want to go eat Chinese? We want to go grab a burger, And then when I entered the university level, all of a sudden, there's people that'll go eat chicken feet with me. This is awesome, and I wasn't so different, and so I had a good time in college. At that time, I was going in school for pre-med. A lot of Asian parents, you either go to law, you go become a doctor or some kind of engineer, right? That's the recommendation. My parents never went to college. Their education was probably, just mid-level school, middle school. So it was a big thing for their kids to go to college. When you immigrate to the States, that's just what you do. So your parents all about academics. So I like kids. So I thought, hey, I'll be a pediatrician. After I have kids, by the way, I don't know if I like kids as much. I like my own kids.
That's awesome.
But anyway, so during that time, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. And the campus that I got accepted in doesn't really have a true pre-med program. So you have to take over extra classes before you, in the US, you take what's called the MCAT. I think it's MCAT, the medical test. So I got all my science classes my first 2 years, did all my math so I can take the pre-med. And that's when the whole internet bubble started bursting, right? Everyone started talking about the internet and all these wealthy guys started doing websites and different things, right? And at the time, I noticed the chemistry classes that I was really good at in high school and biology that I had a lot of fun in was very different in the university level, right? And then I was like, this stuff is very boring, And I was like, I don't know if I can sit in this dark auditorium, and it's always foreign people teaching these classes, right? So I have no idea what they're saying, and I'm just like, huh? What? So, and like I'm falling asleep, 80% of the time. So that's when I decided, well, I want to be a pre-med student, but at the same time, I don't like calculus and all my chemistry class, biology enough to sit through it. So I was like, maybe I should get into computers because I can still be in the hospital and be around computers. And that's when I chose the software engineering career path. So I am a software engineer by trade with a lot of science classes, up the sleeve. So So right before I was going to go into pre-med school, I decided to go all in on computers, and then I even intern with a medical doctor, and then in America, I don't know how it is in Asia. He started telling me all these horror stories. So it wasn't like positive. He told me how much debt that you accumulate being a doctor out of med school. And I was like, why are you telling me this? You're supposed to encourage me to become a medical doctor. And he's like, Kevin, to be honest, you get sued every day. You got to have this, you got to have, this kind of insurance. You got to make sure right after college, you'll be in debt. So you'll be working in the emergency room. You don't get to choose long hours. You'll probably get divorced in your marriage if you find a girl. I was like, this is horrible. So after my internship, that's when I decided, okay, I don't want to be a doctor. This is horrible. So I'm going to accumulate all this debt. And he started telling me, you know why doctors start having their big houses and nice cars around 50? It's because that's when they pay off their debt.
Oh my God.
So that's when I decided, hey, I'll go into software engineering, and and that's when you got the MySpace as a Tom, and all those guys are becoming multimillionaires, right? It sounds pretty cool. So I went that path, and I had a lot of fun in college. I gotta be honest with you. In the U.S., I think people play more than they go to school sometimes. So it was one of those things, hung out with friends a lot, stay up late, and then make it to class in the morning. That was my student life. I had a job in the gym. I managed a gym at the time, and I don't even know how I magically made it, right? I had a job at 5 a.m. So my shift was 5 a.m. so I can take all my classes, and I figure if I get my job out the way early, because my parents weren't wealthy or anything, so I took a student loan, took a grant, and put myself through college as well. So had to work and just balance, work. That's when work-life balance, I start learning that, right? How you can have fun and still pass your exam with at least a C.
Question, Kevin. Are you connected? Are you connected on LinkedIn with that doctor that you interned with? You should probably thank him or her, right?
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, and see if he's living in a big house with a sports car or something.
I'm really glad I'm not a doctor right now during COVID.
Yeah, you should thank him. You should thank him.
Yep. So that's how I got into the path of this internet stuff, right? And this is pre-social media. Started building a lot of web sites, web everything, right? Thought I'll be a multimillionaire, discover Facebook, but didn't happen. So that's what brings me here today, right? So that was my college life, and yeah. So my next question kind of goes with everything we've discussed, right? Student life difference in Asia versus the West.
I think maybe one of the major, I would say major, maybe not so much on the students' loans part. I'm not sure, because I guess most parents would really save for their kids' university fees, and I don't know, with inflation, I don't know if that's still a possibility, but right now I'm trying to save for my kids' university. So in that sense, the student loans part may not be that prevalent here as opposed in the States. I think that's one major difference, if I could point out. Yeah. What do you think, Audrey or Sam? Is that kind of accurate?
I think when I was in Australia, most of my friends, Australian friends, I think they took government loans. I think for people like me and my peers that were coming from overseas, I think a lot of them were funded by parents, and I think a lot of them like ourselves pretty much did some side jobs during off time to supplement our living expenses there. But majority, I think Jeremy kind of make a pretty good point. I think most of them are pretty much funded by parents. There are some scholarship students, but I would say 80 to 90% of those students are family funded, not taking loans or per se. I think in Malaysia, if you're taking student loans, chances are you're going to public universities or even some private universities here. And I think if you're taking loan, I think chances of you going to private is pretty slim. And those categories that kind of goes into private are usually they got scholarships from that particular university or some private entities that kind of fund them. Yeah, but overall, I think you're quite right. The funding portion is very different east versus west.
Yeah, because for like me, I didn't do well my A levels, right? So there was an option of going overseas to study, but my parents, I don't come from a wealthy family, so I thought that no, I'm not gonna burden them with whatever loans, right? And I was not gonna go overseas to study because there's also living expenses, right? Which is why I just did my military service first, and I guess I became more grounded. I did my polytechnic, got my diploma. I worked a couple of years before I went to try and do a part-time degree course, bachelor's degree. And luckily, I sort of got into a scholarship, and I didn't have to pay for my university fee, so that was lucky. And so I think the biggest aspect to me, the difference really is on the funding part. Yeah.
What about regards to your examinations? What does that look like out of high school? I know, talking to nephews and nieces in Hong Kong, so I still have family in Hong Kong. I know they hire a lot of tutoring. It's very high stress, high pressure in order to even have a chance on campus, right? In the US, I mean, you can get you can take the ACTs, a few times until you can get a pretty low score and still get into some kind of junior college, right? What about how is it in Asia? Why do parents spend so much money on
it's really the okay, put it this way, that's how I see it, right? In Asia, we value education a lot because we feel that, or at least most of our earlier generations parents feel that education is the only way or the best way to break out of the poverty cycle, to make it in life, to be rich, to be influential, have a better lifestyle, better lives for your future generations, right? Or at least that's what my parents think, right? Because they were not that educated, they were not exactly rich, making through life, struggling, hard work and all that, and Asian parents will want their kids to be better off, right? Have a better future. So my dad always, if you can study, just go as far as you can. You don't worry about the funding. I don't know why he made that statement, because I know there's not much funds that can come from him, but that's the kind of assurance, right? It's about, just go and study as much as you can, get as high a degree or education you can, and I'll take care of the rest, right? So it's really that kind of what they would like to see their kids do, which brings me back to the point, right? Since academic is so much focused on, so important, that's where people will want their kids to do well. Hence, the tuitions and all the we call it enrichment classes. But I always say the people who are we are enriching is not the kids, but the organizations, the tuition centers. So I always call those empowerment classes because it makes me poorer. So that's why there's this whole thing. And Singapore is well known as a tuition nation, right? I believe as well as in Hong Kong and places like China. And it's I don't know, it's kind of, I don't like that. I only had tuition when I was in primary school. After that, I just hated it. I wanted to do it on my own. I think I did okay. And as much as I don't like to put that on my kids, I have to, send them to enrichment classes, mainly for Chinese, and we try to do as little as we can. But as the year goes by, I think more and more we'll be sending them to other classes just because we want them to achieve academically okay. Yeah, so that's my take. Guys, please go ahead and agree or disagree with me.
I say let's hear from Aldrich next because we're
Yeah.
I think we're on a good west group or a good east grind. So
East side,
let's keep it there. Yeah.
I think one of the key difference that I experience. I'll pick college. So it's the way the American education system, let's say, look at grades versus what I have experienced in Singapore. Because my college is actually run on an American education system. So we don't follow the British system. We don't go A, B, C, D. We go A plus, A minus. So we go GPA. So an American system in Asia gets tuned into the Asian culture. So with grades, there are great policies. There's great distribution. And so every professor has a very in-depth definition of each grade. So I was a teaching assistant for some of the modules that I've taken previously. So when I was helping with the grading, I remember one of my professors, I think his mathematics for econs or something. So he was telling me, he said, Aldrich, don't spend too much time grading. I'll tell you, this is the philosophy. A plus and A, less than 5% of the class. Only for the very talented. And you will know it when you read the paper. Just put them aside. You will know it. Okay? And then the A minuses are for those who are not that talented but very hardworking and they know they can answer the bulk of the questions. Put them aside. In total, 35%. That's it. The rest of the world, they are the non-A pile. And then as you can, be lenient, be nice, give them the B pluses, the B minus. You know, if they really look like they're gonna fail, find your way to pass them. Because if we fail anyone, I got to write a report. That was like, okay. So I was like, okay. So it's a very in-depth definition of like the value in which the school policy, the professors and the students put the value into the alphabets that we are given. So that is reflected even in the way that it is being awarded out, right? But so the stringent part is on one end and the leniency is on the other end. So it's like, it's same with the US. It's very difficult to fail here. It's very difficult to fail because no one wants to write the report. As a teaching assistant, I don't want to write any report. The professors don't want to write any report. We don't want to be questioned by the dean. Period. End of story, right? So, you know, if you write your name and probably just write a few sentences, you probably can get a D, I think. I hope my professor isn't listening to this, but
So the saying is true. Then examinations were made to pass you, not to fail you. That's true.
They're meant to pass you.
Now.
They're meant to pass you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're buying a product, guys.
You're buying a product, yeah.
Unless it's Mensa examination, Mensa is meant to fail you. They only look for the 2%.
Yeah, that's a different. Yeah, that's a different approach. Yeah, got it. Sam,
go ahead. Tim.
Yeah, let's round up on the. Let Sam round up on the Asia side, right?
Oh, okay.
Tuition and yeah.
I think for me, I think the tuition part comes in. I think it's also because of the environment, of the competitive nature of surrounding, and I think a lot. I think there's a saying here we call it kasu or fear of losing our FOMO type thing. So I think the parents themselves felt, as they group together and then they talk about their kids, that's the thing they talk about anyway when they talk to each other. They say, my kids are doing well, and the other side starts feeling that a bit inferior. Then so that's when I think the tuition comes in. A lot. I think like you said, I'm not too sure whether from the kids' perspective whether it's needed, whether they really felt they very value it. I think that's an unfortunate development of the society that kind of resulted in us or our generation pushing our kids towards tuition, and that's where it created a very big lucrative industry where everybody's starting tuition centers. I think it's also quite quite big in Malaysia here. I think it's pretty much
Yeah.
at the tuition center in every corner of the street nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one part. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Sam. You know, the part about comparing grades. When parents get together, they compare grades of the children, right? And then if your kid's not so good, then you go back and tell the kids, you know, so and so so and so's son scored whatever higher. You know, why can't you score that kind of grade, right? Or why are you behind? That kind of thing. I absolutely hated that when I was younger, being compared to my cousin who was brighter or something like that. And yeah, that's sort of like you have makes you want to do a tuition or, you know, really be slightly more hardworking for that 1 or 2 weeks. So
and then they compare you when you get your first job too. So and so son, you know,
the comparison. In Asia, the comparison never stops.
6 figures when they first graduate. How do you know, Mom? Did he tell you?
Mom fill out their tax papers. Yeah. I make 6 figures as well, but this is where the decimal point is. That's the difference. I can make 10 figures, but the decimal point is further in front, right?
Let's get the East, and so that's the West. So
yeah. So just from, again, my student life, I think, was a little bit unique, right? So I can't necessarily take my experiences and say that this is, you know, how it is in the West for everyone. But what I do think I see, just based on what I saw during my college years, previously, afterwards, is, you know, I think in the West, there's a lot of like a party idea to the college experience, as opposed to necessarily like it's kind of like, yes, you go to college to get a degree, but it's also for the experience, the social experience of it. And I think that's a big difference that I see. You know, people like tell me like, oh man, you missed out in college. And I'm like, well, whatever. I mean, that was my life. So it is what it is. But, you know, I think a lot of in the West, it's as much the social experience, the experience of, you know, male and female getting together, kind of, you know, leash off, so to speak. You know, and, you know, the drinking and the partying and all that stuff. And yeah, you get the degree along the way, but a lot of people do flunk out of college because they get into party life, and then boom, next thing you know, they're not really studying at all, you know. And some people can do that and make it, and some people can't. So, you know, I think, so there you go. There's Kenneth. I don't think honestly, I don't think it's that much fiction, to be honest with you, Kenneth.
Really?
I've seen it firsthand, you know.
Movies are real, guys. Everything that happens in movies, if it isn't happening now, it will eventually.
Right.
You know,
oh my God.
Electric cars, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody watched the movie, The Social Network, right? That was as much about partying on Harvard campus as it was Mark Zuckerberg getting an education and becoming CEO of Facebook. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's, if we're talking about the big difference, I think that's from my viewpoint, from what I see, that's the difference that I see, is that the American college experience is about the college experience, not so much about the education. Whereas everything you guys talked about pretty much had to do with education and getting the grades. So that's what I see. And Kev, I mean, you can speak to it. Actually.
And I agree with Tim, and I get the best of both worlds because I have very, Asian parents, but at the same time, I have very American friends, you know? So I was pulled in both directions, you know? My parents want we weren't like super wealthy or anything. So it was definitely, hey, if you're going to college, you better get that GPA. You better graduate. Yeah, your friends are partying, but there is definitely that fine line, you know? Very different. So I do agree with Tim. I think it is, there's, kids that are fortunate where they're entitled to their parents paying for college, and some of them have fun where instead of 4-year college, it might be 7 years or 8 years, but I do agree. There's a lot of social life in America. And I would say to Sam, I would not want to run a hostel in the U.S. because of the amount of liability there is of your building being destroyed and cleaning staff, So, and just to rewind a little, so I own a college restaurant and bar for about 4 years of my life. So before I got back into the whole computer industry or marketing world, there was a time I ran when Kenneth says sorority, fraternity life, those were my target audience. Those were my customers. Wow. And that's how I made money. So I was around college life from a student perspective and from an entrepreneur perspective. And let's say I spent a lot of money fixing my bar.
Were there a lot of like bar fights or something like that? Do you get a lot of that?
Carry a huge policy so that you don't get. Let's say I've been sued by several parents in my past. For and majority of the time is their son got drunk, threw a glass, hits a girl in the back of her head, and now I'm the one being sued. And I was like, I provided the alcohol for them to drink. They pay for our service. How are you suing me? Your son threw the glass. So majority of the cases don't go anywhere, but there was a lot of that. Johnny went here, or Molly went here and did something, I would say, stupid, but then they look for something to blame, and it's usually the bar owner, So, but there's a lot of that. And so I would say college life is very real that you see in the movies. But then there's always the ones that take it seriously too, There's a balance. And I see the best in both worlds. I think in Asian society, just listening, we feel very pressure at times to meet our parents' standards, in education, trying to be something that might not be what we want, right? It might be what my mom and dad wants, right? And when you're young, there's that respect of your elder in the Asian culture that we take it very, we don't take that lightly, and we try to please our parents. So we end up with this degree that has nothing to do with what we want or enjoy, right?
It's almost like filial piety, right? You're doing it being a good child, right? Good son,
being a good soldier. Yeah.
And then in the American culture, there's that, hey, it's freedom to express, freedom for creativity. And hey, if you can create a software, drop out of college, hey, chase your passion, right? But I think being in the middle myself, I see the best in both worlds. Like for me personally, I still would encourage my kids to adapt to education and take it seriously. But then, I wouldn't be like pressuring them into like, hey, what occupations you have to do, right? Because my philosophy is you can be a janitor, but if you go be a janitor, you be the guy that owns the janitorial service. It's okay. I've met janitors that are millionaires. They clean the Chiefs stadium. They aren't cleaning the mom and pop shop. So I mean, I think perspective is everything, and that's what the show's all about, right? I think we have a lot of debt as well in the U.S. College is not cheap. You either have to, if your family's lower income, there's always opportunity where you can get government grants where you don't have to pay back. You have FAFSA student loans that you can take out, like federal loans and different things like that, which has, interest and everything. And a lot of times you're working to pay it back. So it's still very similar to what you guys experience as well.
Kevin, just for context, how much would a college university cost look like? I mean, out of total, right, in 3 years, or is it
So
4
in
years?
the U.S., it depends. Are you
Average.
going to Harvard or are you
No,
going
just
to
leave, just
Just
leave
average.
Ivy League out of the picture.
Yeah,
Just leave Ivy
average,
League out.
right? Average.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
probably still, what do you say, like 10, 15 grand a year?
A year?
I think now it's gone up.
I think so
I think
too, but
now
I'm
it's
just-
about
I think I was
30
like-
from talking to like guys like younger than me, Gen Zs, their parents are 30, 40K from
A year?
just
Yeah.
mhm.
Just for tuition fees, right?
Yep.
Just wow.
Yeah, I mean, you're
Oh.
walking out. Yeah, so you think about it, you're walking out, and that it's not uncommon in America to walk out of college with 100K plus in student debt. Not uncommon at all.
Wow.
I mean, Sergio,
Wow.
if Sergio is still watching, if he wants to respond, he's a recent graduate, so he might have a better gauge than we do. I've been 20 years removed from college, but that being said, yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon to have that level of debt. I mean, I know people have a lot more than that, to be honest with you.
And then you also have to look at you have out of state, right? In the U.S., most kids don't want to stay in their hometown for college. They want to get away from their parents so we can do those social experiments, right? So what happens if you move out? First 2 years, a lot of times you're required to live in the dormitory that the college provides. So now you're looking at room and board. So that's on top of the 20,
Tuition
30K
fees, yeah.
tuition, so that's all extra, right? And if you have like cafeteria plan, because you can't cook in the dorms, only if you pay the higher, end rooms, right? So now you have to eat their cafeteria plan or you go out and eat. So, I mean, that's all on top. So you can stack another 15, 20,000 on living expense.
Yeah, so Sergio just responded 30K annually. 30K.
30K
Ooh.
annually.
I think we could probably do a separate episode and talk about education, because I think the question is, is this system still relevant, right, in this current era of change, digital disruption and all that? But I think we can leave that for a different episode.
We should get Junaid Iqbal from LinkedIn on that episode, because he'd be a really good person to talk about that, because he's got some views on that. But anyway, but I agree.
This goes into my next question, right? So we talk about university life, U.S. East and the West, right? I think we can all agree U.S. is a little more, we have free, even our culture is different, right? So it's the way the West, we want to have fun while we learn a little more. And I think in Asia culture, there's a little more pressure with the parents. So, academic is very important. But do you see value in university or college for the future? So I would love to hear the East perspective and then the West perspective, because there's a lot of talk about that, especially with COVID, where, it's changed the education system. I have my 8 and 5-year-old doing virtual school. So go ahead.
Yeah, why don't you jump in?
I can start. So one of the most inspiring TED Talks I've ever seen, and I watched it a few times, right? It's the one by Sir Ken Robinson. He passed away this year, sadly. And he talked about, it's, education, killing creativity and all that stuff. But there's one thing he said in his TED Talk, which resonated with me a lot. In terms of the entire education system, right? It's built on the industrial age, right? Which when we value a lot on mathematics and science, and we're still doing that. So whether that is relevant in the digital age, that's debatable. But the quick answer, do I see value? I would say yes. Otherwise, I won't be putting my kids through school, right? I'll just let them, play software or whatever. I guess in this current time and age, we still need some form of benchmarking, right? That is, and this system has served us well in the past. I don't know how many centuries, right? But there has to be a certain way to measure and benchmark, the intellectual kid A versus kid B versus kid C. So I think there is still value, because the basics don't change. Yes, there might be differences. There could be digital disruption. For example, you talk about digital marketing, but it's still marketing. The basics, marketing 101 does not change. Yes, it's digital, but the basics don't change. So I still do see there's value because a lot of these basics don't change. And yeah, you should really learn how to crawl and walk before you fly. So in short, I still do see the value, but maybe the system or the way it's measured or the way it's done could be different. Maybe more problem solving rather than regurgitating and memorizing everything. The approach could change, right? But yeah, there is still value at the end of the day.
That's really good.
Aldrich or Sam?
I think for me,
Sam, why don't you go first? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, I think it's the value of the social interaction. I think that to me is probably the biggest piece of value to students kind of getting to universities. I think that's where we're seeing the industry is also moving towards a lot about getting them ready to be part of the society rather than just. I think I hear what Jeremy was saying. I think that portion is important. I see some universities already start changing some of the courses they're putting out. As recent as one universities in Malaysia, they started putting out a course called entrepreneurship. That's something I haven't heard of previously, and I think they just put it up during the midst of pandemic. So I think the universities themselves are changing. They are seeing that the fact that they are getting a bit irrelevant over time. But for me, I think running hostel, also running co-living, I think a big portion of that, and that's probably pushing also. It's about them starting up their social network, really upfront during college life, and a lot of the students that we're seeing coming to college is actually their first time out of their home, and previously they're so they pretty much anything they want, they just open their mouth and they get it. But now, living on their own, living with people that strangers, it needs to kind of start to interact with people. They're no longer just open their mouth and they get something. They need to interact, they need to compromise, they need to understand, not step on people's toes, and how to kind of manage that social interaction. So it becomes like a training ground for them, so that when they get into the working life, it's something that it's more kind of flowing into it rather than a big shock to the system. To me, I think that's the biggest piece of value for anybody kind of going through the college life and the social interaction of it.
That's actually a good point, because that in itself is sort of a different kind of education, right? That's 24/7 there, but you just don't feel it. And especially for you, I think you studied overseas, so you get exposed to diversity and different cultures. You become more inclusive and more sensitive to certain things, as opposed to if you were staying at home all this while and it's just your parents and you, maybe a few friends here and there. It's still very inward looking. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good point, Sam.
That's good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aldrich.
I still think that there is value in university education, but not the way that most people would think of the value that they think about. Where I'm coming from is when I work with entrepreneurs and things like that. If they have, some of those do not have early exposure to the various disciplines of business. So when they run their own business, they run as if they are an operator, but not as a business owner, stepping back and say, hey, this is a symphony. I need to ensure that the violinist is playing. I need to ensure that someone is doing something and not actually doing that thing. So from that perspective, because I'm from B school, I'm also from accounting school, I see that value in that education. My question is, do we need 4 years? My question is, the person that's teaching, is that person a practitioner? Or he's
that's good.
a professor? I have nothing against professors, but I think where I would like to see the changes in the future is if we have a choice of choosing the person, the class, whether it's being lectured by an academician or a practitioner. Yeah, because you can really see. I remember one of my tax classes, it was taught by a partner from, I don't know, it's PricewaterhouseCoopers or EY. The real life situations that he goes through, and when he presents it in class, None of us can solve those issues at all. We can't. Not even the smartest guys. So then it gives me that impression that, hey, we are here. Supposedly, college education, cream of the crop, whatever they want to call that, but together in a class of 40, with time, we can't solve a real life issue, right? So that's what I'm coming from. And I think that college education is important, but not everyone has to take college education at 20 or 22. Some of us take a longer time to blossom. It's perfectly fine to take it later in life. And I think there are, for business and accounting and for entrepreneurship, it is way better to have the street experience first before getting into the B schools or the accounting schools, because then your lessons come alive. And then you realize that the textbook that you read is at least 20 years outdated. You'll be like, annoyed. Like annoyed. So I'll give an example before I hand over. Marketing. Principles of marketing. Oh, okay. In the US, you call it marketing 101, something like that, right? Textbooks today are still talking about the 4 Ps: price, position, product, place. Price.
Oh, it's seven.
Oh, okay. So
7
from 4 to
Ps.
7. But in today's world, where we're talking about physical and online, digital marketing, really? 4 Ps, 7 Ps? Like you should be talking about like online presence, omnipresence, or where you can, your branding management, right? But it's not there yet. So that's what I think. I think that the schools and the professors have a role to play. We are responsible for ourselves ultimately. So what kind of experience are we going to get? And even if it means, I spoke to one of my entrepreneurs whose son is going to university, and that guy wants to be an entrepreneur too. I said that, think about it. Actually, you can stop school for a year, just go out there and do business or learn how to do sales and marketing, speaking to people, defer university for a year, and then get to university, to B school. You'll realize that the entire experience is so much more enriching. It's fine. Really, it's fine. So I think the future value of university, we have a role to play. We have to be flexible.
That's good.
That's my point.
Great.
Yeah, and it's so true, Eldrick, because when you look at, like marketing example, because I'm in the marketing field, if you think about it, the curriculum, by the time they get the textbook out to the university, is already outdated. By the time you talk about TikTok, there's already a new platform, or a new algorithm. So it's very hard to scale teaching. And it goes back to also what Jeremy said, though. We have to remember in marketing and IT and all these things, English or, copywriting, the basic fundamentals don't change, right? Marketing's still about psychology and winning attention. It's just no longer a billboard. It was a website, but now you have social media. But at the end of the day, it's still these principles. It's still wrapped around, So I think, you definitely have a point there. And I think I can speak for the U.S. side. I think a lot of universities are now seeing more value in reaching out to alumni to be able to teach more of the master level courses where, they're reaching out to entrepreneurs like myself or even you guys where, hey, can you give some real life mentorship or teaching, and then we'll give you a kickback or something. I think a lot of universities are seeing the value of that. Yep.
Yeah, I would, and I would say on the question itself, for me, it's a very big, it depends, right? And when I say it depends on what your goals are in life. Because, the reality is, for somebody who's going to come get out of school and become, let's say, an administrative assistant, right? You got $120,000 in debt, according to, a Wyoming education, to make $30,000 a year. How many years is it going to take you to make back your college education? So if that's the case, I don't see value at all and going to college, if you don't have a plan to do something greater with your degree, no, I think it's absolutely a terrible value proposition in today's world. I do. I think it's a very poor proposition if you're going to get into the workforce and it's going to take you, because that's $30,000 a year is before tax. So really, you're probably going to take home about 20. And obviously, you have living expenses. So how long is it going to take you to actually pay back your education? It's a terrible value proposition, right? That being said, if you're going to be a doctor or something like that, it's required. So of course, that's a good value proposition, and you should hopefully be able to make, upper six figures, maybe 200,000-300,000, something like that. And you made up, you spent 200,000, but you're making that annually, so it's fine. Eventually, it's going to pay itself down, right? But it really honestly depends on what your path is. I mean, if you're going to, if you're going to end up in sales or something like that, shit, you don't need a college education. You don't. You really don't. I mean, I'm living proof, right? I excelled without a college education. I was, tops in a lot of stuff in sales, and I was uneducated, right? But
But you can sign up for Tim's course.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna put a link below.
Yeah, right. Jordan Belfort 2.0.
It'll be a fraction of the 30K annually. We'll only take 15.
Right.
And you get real life people. We'll even give our guest Sam a cut. So
no, but it like I said, it really honestly depends on what you want to do in life. And I agree with Aldrich wholeheartedly, which is don't rush into college just because you think that's the next step. If you have no idea what you want to do in life, go get some real life experience. Go figure out, go try a couple jobs and realize, man, I hate this. This is not what I want to do with my life. Go get an internship or something while you don't have responsibilities. If you have the luxury of living with your parents for a few more years, go figure out your life before you jump in. And like we just talked about, spend let's just say $100,000 to get out of college and get a $30,000 job. The math doesn't equate.
And Tim, not forgetting, if you're in the business of time, right? You're not accounting for the 3 or 4 years when you're chalking out the debt. When that 3 or 4 years, you could be working to make money or learn experiences that are invaluable, right? So that's the other side of it. So I agree with you. It depends. Really depends.
Yeah, it just depends on your life circumstances. And I think just real quick, and I'll let Kevin go. But if you're the average middle class person, I would definitely say give yourself pause before just jumping right into college, because it's going to take you a long time to make that money back up. And if you don't have a plan, it's just a bad investment. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. So for me, I feel, when it comes to education, right, it really depends on the child, on the kid. Now that I'm a parent, and college might not be for everyone, right? There's trade school now. Guys can, go learn how to weld and make really good money, right? Welding, or, you might go into IT, but you can do hardware IT, where it's a 2-year certification, and you can do cybersecurity and make probably as much as the 4-year developer, So there's different ways. But I think for me, university, college life really help is, and I can see it even from an entrepreneur, someone that's been in management, entrepreneur, who's hiring people and looking for talent day in and day out. I can truly say that it does make a difference. And some of you might not agree, which is okay, and might think it's biased. But I think what college does, it depends on the child though, right? Some people are born with the discipline, the ability to manage time. Think about it, from elementary all throughout high school, doesn't matter if you're in the US or Asia, you have your parents. They cook for you, they wake you up to make sure you go to class. But when you get to the college level, it's the first time in your life, no one's going to baby you to show up to CIS 101. It's your job to set your alarm clock, and show up. If you party really hard the night before, no one cares. You know, that's real life. At a job, your boss isn't going to call you because you slept in. I don't care. You know, I want my projects done. There isn't no, I was busy yesterday. I got sick, blah, blah, blah. After a while, I'm like, you're fired. You know, that's just the reality of life, right? And I think that's when in college, university is almost like you get to a practice run of reality. If you don't get the grades, you don't pass. You know, there's no excuses, you know. And I do see that part in our everyday young people today. The people who's gone through some kind of schooling, I think the expectation is a little different. Now, given there are people just born with natural discipline. There's people that are born to be able to wake up, do a job without ever going through college, right? But I think those are the life experiences I feel I got from college, and it helps my mind think too, right? How do I solve problems and create solutions? Not even because of the education, right? How do I figure out if I went to the bar the night before? How do I figure out how to solve this? Getting by my exam the next day and
where the heck are my keys?
Yeah, so you're still solving problems in your everyday college life. You know, hey, I did XYZ, which is bad, but now how am I going to solve that problem, right? And then the real world, you make it by solving problems. You solve someone else's problem. Doesn't matter if it's sales, if it's administration. If you aren't a problem solver, you're going to make very little money. I can tell you that right now. You know,
if you're not a problem solver, you're a problem creator.
Yeah, and not every child is born naturally without some kind of institution to force them to solve problems, or born to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
You know, or we would have a lot of guys make millionaires, you know, sitting around. It's like the top 1%, right? It's not like they're just floating around in this world, you know. So I think too, we have this, I always say, almost like dreaming, right? There's also reality, right? Everyone looks at, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates didn't go to college. And you see all these quotes around, okay? Garyvee. Garyvee went to college, guys. He has a degree. Sorry to break the news to you, okay? As much he talks about, hey, you know, hustle, you know, work really hard. Gary has a college degree, okay? And there are doors I can't get in as a marketer if I didn't have a college degree. Like, people would not even have the opportunity for me to talk to them. There are places I can get to because of that little piece of paper I pay thousands, you know, of dollars for. So, I mean, that's the reality, you know, it's still real. It still applies today. And I see it applying in the near future too, right? But now, like Tim said, man, if you can close deals and you're a salesperson and you can help people make money, a college degree isn't needed, you know? So it really depends. And there's a lot I see value in it still. And then I see the value of you have to know who you are, right? What fits your game plan. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So, well, that was my last question actually for the night. But you know, it was really fun talking about college and college life. Something I'm already looking at. How do I save enough money? If everything's going up, you know, I better get a third job.
No, Kev, it's easy. Train your kids to be salespeople. Then you'll be making money. They'll be paying for you instead. You're paying for the college.
That's true. No, I already told Jen, man, I'm good. If my kid's gonna go to college, he better go sell cars. It's good money for college guy. You know? Yep. I
thought I was rich at 22 when I started selling cars. Seriously, I was like, my first real paycheck was $2,000 for the week. I was like, shit, I'm in. Like, I was 22, so it's $2,000 for a week. I was like, I went on a shopping spree. I brought all new wardrobe. I was like, shit, I'm in, man. This is it. This is the life right here. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, go sell some cars, man. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a different game anyway today.
Yeah, and I feel like kids is either getting some kind of service job, right? I mean, I'm gonna put my kid working at a restaurant. I think restaurants are great too. You got customer service combined with sales, and then you can get in 16 here in the U.S.
Yeah, you learn to deal with difficult people. A skill set you need for life.
Learn to do stuff you don't like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, next week is here in the U.S., right? U.S. only. We're having Thanksgiving. So we want to say have a great Thanksgiving. So we will not have Bottoms Up Perspective, our show, next week. I know you're all disappointed. Yeah. But we're getting ready. December 16, we're going to do a mega episode. Where what time do we start? Is it 6
p.m. for CST, I believe. Yeah.
Yep. What about in Asia?
I think it's 8 a.m.
7 a.m.
Okay.
8. Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think he's 7. I think it's 7 because
7.
Yeah.
So we'll be bringing back some of our past guests, and we go into a topic of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's a mega episode, and we hope to bring you a lot of value. And it's one of those talks where we're just bringing back past guests where they can share their heart out. And we hope you can join us. So it's right before the Christmas and the holidays.
Kev, you forget to mention it's mega because it's back to back to back to back. So it's going to be running like 4 hours.
Yep, and Tim's going to be doing some DJing in between the different episodes. So we hope everyone can join us. And we want to say thank you to StreamYard as well. They're one of our sponsors and for making all this possible where we can go live everywhere. And just appreciate everyone's time and appreciate you, Sam. So for our audience, Sam, what's the best way to connect with you, follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect me by LinkedIn, but we also have Facebook page. Nowadays, it's pretty much all social media. So I'm on Facebook. You can just look for UJ Hostel. Instagram also same. LinkedIn is the same. So just connect me or just search me up in LinkedIn under Sam Chor. You should be able to see I'm connected with all you guys here. So
yeah.
Hey, Sam, thanks for joining us, and we appreciate your insight, too. And student life, is real. And, hey, some of us have good experiences. Some of us have bad experiences. But for all you students out there, the whole goal is look at the world from a different perspective. It's not always what.
Enjoy it.
Yep, and enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
it's the best occupation, really, being a student.
Yep. And it's good to just block out all the noise and sometimes just hear what's in your heart, right? And yep. Don't waste your time on someone else's ideas and thoughts. Yep.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Have a good night, guys. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Later. Bye.
Good Thanksgiving.
Take care. Bye.
bye.